The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character.
Don't make a scene, my mother told me. Your sister is getting ready for a baby. She needs a warm place to build a life. She is like you, a cold woman focused only on work. My mom stood in the door of my high-end apartment. She was wearing my silk robe. I was out in the hallway with my suitcases. We locked the deadbolt so she feels safe, she said with a smirk. Go to a hotel, you have plenty of money. Then she slammed the door in my face. I was stuck in the hall, locked out of the home I paid for, while my own family robbed me from the inside. Before I explain how I legally finished them without breaking a single law, tell me in the comments, what is the most selfish thing a relative has ever done to you? I am going to read every single post. I went to a hotel 3 blocks away from my place. The room was nice, the bed was clean, and I had a view of the city lights, but I couldn't stop thinking about one thing. I was paying $450 a night to stay in a bed that wasn't mine while my parents drank my expensive wine in the living room I saved up for 6 years to buy. I didn't get any sleep. I sat by the glass and watched the snow fall in Boston, trying to figure out how we got to this point. But deep down, I already knew the answer. This wasn't some quick choice by parents who were in trouble. This was a plan to take everything I had. You see, in my family, children are not seen as people. We are just investments. My parents have 2 kinds of assets in their portfolio. There is my sister, the risky asset. She is high risk and gives 0 return, but she makes them feel good because she always needs them. She is their forever project, the weak thing they have to protect. And then there is me, the secondary asset. I figured out what that meant 3 years ago. My father needed a heart operation. His insurance was useless because he stopped paying for it. He used that money to pay for my sister's second lawyer after she got a drunk driving charge. He called me from the hospital bed, crying and scared he was going to die. I didn't wait. I sent $58,000 straight to the hospital to pay for the surgery and his recovery. I used up my entire emergency fund because I thought that's what a good daughter does. 3 months after that, I went to see him for a holiday. I saw a brand new truck in the driveway with a big red bow on top. She needs a good vehicle for her new job, my mother said, looking very proud. I asked how they paid for a new truck. My father looked right at me. The scar on his chest from the surgery I paid for was still fresh. He said we had some extra cash left over. We made it work. They didn't have any extra cash. They had my cash. The money I sent to save his life became a gift for her lifestyle. That was the moment I understood. They didn't think my money was mine. They thought it was family property that I was just holding for them. I wasn't a person with my own property rights. I was just a bank account that had finally grown enough. And now they were taking the money out. That is how they use biology as a weapon. They knew exactly what they were doing when they brought my sister to my place. They weren't just giving a pregnant woman a place to stay. They were using her pregnancy as a shield. They knew I wouldn't kick a woman in her 3rd trimester out into a winter storm. They knew the neighbors and the public would hate me for it. They were betting that my heart was bigger than their greed. The next morning I called my lawyer. His name is Mr. Vance, and he is a shark who handles my business contracts. I told him I wanted them out. I wanted the cops, the sheriff, or the National Guard. I didn't care who. Listen to me, Mr. Vance said. His voice got very deep and serious. You have a problem, a huge one. It's my house, I yelled. I have the deed. It doesn't matter, Mr. Vance told me. The person at your front desk let them in. He gave them a key. In the eyes of the law in Massachusetts, they are not burglars. They are guests who have established a right to live there. And since there is a pregnant woman and it is winter in Boston, no judge is going to sign an order to kick them out right now. We are looking at 6 months at the minimum, maybe 8. I felt the blood leave my face. 8 months, they would destroy the apartment. They would sell all my furniture. They know that, Mr. Vance said. They are waiting for you to give up. They want you to pay them to move out. It's a shakedown. I hung up the phone. I looked at the grey sky outside. My parents had won the first round. They used the legal system meant to protect the weak to protect their theft. They thought they had won. They thought I would just write them a check, cry about it, and move on because that's what the secondary asset always does. But they forgot what I do for work. I don't just sign deals. I find the small holes in the fine print that destroy the other side when they try to screw me over. I realized right then that housing laws weren't going to help me. I needed to skip the housing courts completely. I didn't need a notice to move out. I needed a nuclear option. I needed to find the one thing they loved more than my sister, more than the apartment, or even their own names. I needed to find their greed. And I needed to use that greed to trap them. For 4 days I went totally silent. I blocked my mother's number. I didn't look at my sister's social media posts, even though I knew she was posting pictures of her feet on my coffee table with captions like "Finally home." I didn't call the police. I didn't go bang on the door. I let them sit in my warm home, drinking my wine, thinking they had won. I needed them to feel safe. I needed them to be arrogant because arrogant people do not read the small details. You see, my parents have a huge weakness. It isn't just that they are greedy. It's that they think they are the smartest people in the room. They think rules are only for other people. They think the law is just a suggestion. I was counting on that pride to be the rope they would use to hang themselves. On the 4th morning, I called my father. I used to burn a phone so he would actually answer. "Hello," he said. His voice sounded groggy. It was 10 on a Tuesday morning and he was still in bed. "Dad," I said. I made my voice sound small and shaky. I acted just like I was 11 years old and scared. "Dad, I'm exhausted. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep fighting you, Mom, and my sister." "You win." There was a short silence and then he let out a puff of pride. "Well, it is about time you started thinking straight. We are family. We shouldn't be fighting over a place to live." "I know," I told him. "I want to give the deed to you. I want to put the apartment in your and Mom's names. That way my sister will be safe, and I can just walk away." I could almost hear him smiling through the phone. He was already doing the math on the $1.9 million that was falling into his lap for nothing. "But there is a problem," I said. "A legal one. My lawyer says that if I just hand you the house, the government will treat it as a gift. The tax bill will be huge. It would be hundreds of thousands of dollars. You would have to sell the place just to pay the taxes." I heard him move around in the bed. "We can't pay that. You know we are on a fixed income." "I know," I lied. "So here is the way around it. We have to make it look like you were the one who bought it. We have to pretend that the $375,000 I paid in cash for the down payment was actually your money, and you just gave it to me to hold on to." "Okay," he said slowly. "How do we do that?" "It's just some papers," I explained. "It is called a source of funds affidavit. It's a normal form for the building management. You just have to sign a statement swearing that the $375,000 was your own money from cash savings that you gave to me to buy the apartment. If you sign that, the board will let me transfer the deed. The government will see it as your own equity, so there won't be a gift tax." He stopped to think. He wasn't completely dumb. He knew that lying on legal forms could be bad. "Does the government see this?" he asked. "I don't want the IRS looking at my bank accounts." "No, Dad," I lied smoothly. "This is just a document for the building office files. It's just a formality to get your name on the deed." I held my breath and waited. "All right," he said. "Send it over. Let's get this finished." He fell for it. He thought he was outsmarting the tax office. He thought he was helping me help him steal my home. But he forgot the most important rule. Never sign anything until you know what the other person is hiding. While my lawyer was writing up that paper, I was doing the work I should have done a long time ago. I started digging. I didn't have to hack into anything. People put their whole lives on public records and just hope no one looks. I logged into the federal court system and searched for my father and mother. I wasn't looking for money. I knew they didn't have any. I was looking for the lack of money. And I found it. There was a file from 7 months ago. It was a bankruptcy discharge. My heart started beating fast. I scrolled through the financial papers. It was a mess of bad choices, credit cards, loans, medical bills. They had wiped away almost $85,000 in debt. But I didn't care about the debt. I looked at the list of their assets. They were required by law to list everything they owned. Cash, savings, jewelry, everything. On the line for cash on hand, they wrote $0. On the line for other financial assets, they wrote $0. At the bottom of the page, right above their signatures, was a warning in big black letters. "I declare under penalty of perjury that this information is true and correct." I sat back and stared at the screen. A cold smile grew on my face. 7 months ago, my parents stood in front of a federal judge and swore they were broke. They swore they had nothing so the government would forgive their debts. And tomorrow, I was going to have them sign a new paper, on video and in front of a notary, swearing that at that exact same time, they actually had $375,000 in secret cash. They couldn't have both. They couldn't be broke for the court and rich for the apartment. If they signed my paper, they were admitting to federal bankruptcy fraud. That carries a prison sentence of up to 4 years and a fine of up to $300,000, plus they would lose everything. They were trapped. Their greed made them want the house. To get the house, they had to claim the money. To claim the money, they had to admit to a felony. I sent the bankruptcy file to my lawyer with a short note. The trap is ready. Get the court reporter. It was time to give them exactly what they asked for. The conference room at the office of Mr. Vance did not look like a place where a family comes to make up. It looked like a place where big companies go to die. The room was full of chrome and glass, and it had a view of the Boston skyline that cost $650 an hour just to look at. I sat at the far end of the long wooden table. I kept my hands folded in my lap. To my right sat Mr. Vance, looking like a vulture in a very expensive suit. In the corner, a court reporter was setting up her typing machine. Next to her, a man was adjusting a camera on a tripod, pointing the lens at the empty chairs across from me. This wasn't just a casual meeting. We set it up as a formal legal session to satisfy the building's board. I told my parents that the building was so exclusive that they required a sworn statement to prove the money wasn't dirty. That was a lie, of course. The building didn't care, but the federal government certainly would. At 2 sharp, the elevator doors opened. My parents walked in like they were royalty arriving at a crowning ceremony. My father wore his Sunday suit, the one he usually only wore for funerals or when he was asking for a loan. My mother was wearing a fur coat that I recognized immediately. It was a vintage piece I had bought at an estate sale 3 years ago. She had gone into my closet and stolen it before coming here. My sister walked in behind them, with one hand on her pregnant belly and the other holding a Starbucks cup. She didn't even look at me. She just stared at the view, probably thinking about how good the office would look on her social media page. They sat down, they didn't say hello. They didn't ask how I was doing at the hotel. My father just tapped his fingers on the table and looked at my lawyer. "Let's get this over with," he said. "The traffic is terrible and my daughter needs to rest." "Water," my mother added, pointing at a glass bottle in the middle of the table. She looked at me. "Pour your sister some water." I didn't move, I didn't even blink, I just watched them. Mr. Vance cleared his throat. The sound was like a hammer hitting a piece of wood. "Ma'am and sir," he began, his voice very cold. "Before we go any further, I need to tell you the rules. This is a sworn statement. The court reporter is writing down every single word. The video is being recorded for the official record." We know," my father waved his hand like it was nothing. "It's for the building board, let's just sign." Mr. Vance did not move. He slid the document across the mahogany table. It was the paper about where the money came from. "Sir, as an officer of the court, I am required to give you a warning," Mr. Vance said, looking my father right in the eyes. "You are about to swear under penalty of perjury that you personally held $375,000 in cash savings and that you gave this money to your daughter for the purchase of this apartment. If this statement is found to be a lie, or if it conflicts with other federal financial papers, you could face felony charges. Do you understand?" The room went completely silent. The hum of the video camera seemed to get louder. This was their chance to stop. This was the moment a smart person would have backed down. This was the moment a normal person would have remembered the bankruptcy papers. But my father didn't hear a warning. He only heard a challenge. He looked at the paper, then he looked at me. He saw his daughter, the secondary asset, trying to scare him with big legal words. He saw the keys to the apartment almost in his hand. His greed was so loud that it blocked out his survival instinct. He let out a dry, arrogant laugh. "I know what money I have, son," my father said, picking up the heavy pen. "I've been saving cash in a safe for 25 years. Mattress money. The government doesn't need to know everything, right?" He actually winked at the camera. Mr. Vance stayed totally serious. "State your name for the record and sign, please," he said. My father said his name loudly for the microphone. He signed the paper with a big, fancy stroke of the pen. My mother signed next. Her hand was shaking a little bit, but not because she was afraid. She was shaking because she was excited. She was signing for a lifestyle she felt she was owed. My sister clapped her hands together quietly. "Finally," she whispered. They leaned back in their chairs, smiling like they had just pulled off the biggest theft in history. They thought they had outsmarted the tax office, the building, and their easy daughter. They didn't realize they had just signed a confession. The ink on the paper was barely dry when the mood in the room changed. It felt like a storm was coming. My father put the cap back on the pen, pushed the paper toward me, and leaned back with his hands behind his head. "There," he said to my sister, grinning. "That wasn't so hard. Now sign the deed to give us the house. The movers are coming tomorrow." I didn't touch the pen. I didn't even look at the deed. I looked at Mr. Vance. "Counselor," I said. Mr. Vance nodded. He opened his briefcase again. This time he pulled out a thick red folder. He laid a stack of blue-covered legal papers on the table, right on top of the statement my parents had just signed. My mother's face got tight. "What is that?" she asked. "This," I said very calmly, "is your bankruptcy discharge from the federal court. It is dated exactly 7 months ago." My father's smile didn't go away. It just turned into a look of confusion. "So what?" he said. "That is old news. Our debts were cancelled." "Look at page 4, I said very quietly. "Schedule AB assets." I put my finger on the line. "You swore to a federal judge under oath that you had 0 cash, 0 savings, and 0 property. You told the court you were completely broke, so they would wipe out $85,000 in debt." Then I pointed at the camera with its unblinking red light. "But 5 minutes ago," I continued, "you swore on video, also under oath, that you have been sitting on $375,000 in cash savings for many years. You can't have it both ways. You cannot be poor for the court and rich for the apartment. If you sign this paper, you are admitting to federal bankruptcy fraud." The room was totally silent. My sister's eyes went back and forth between our faces like she was trying to do the math. My mother's hand went up to her neck. My father's skin turned a gross, pale grey colour. I found it," my father stammered, "in an old coat pocket after the bankruptcy was over." Mr. Vance raised one eyebrow. $375,000 in a coat pocket. "It was a gift," my mother shouted, "from a friend." "Then it is income," Mr. Vance said quickly. "And you didn't report it to the tax office or the court trustee. And since you just said it was money you saved over 25 years, you have now lied on the record." My father's chair made a loud noise as he jumped to his feet. "Give me that paper back." He reached across the table for the statement. Mr. Vance put his hand firmly on top of it. "I cannot do that," Mr. Vance said. "It is now evidence." "Evidence of what?" my father yelled. His veins were popping out of his neck. "We are just helping our daughter. You tricked us." "I didn't trick you," I said in a cold, steady voice. "I told you what the law required. You chose to lie because you wanted my home more than you wanted to tell the truth. You walked in here broke and you just made yourself a criminal on camera because you tried to steal my house." He said something mean and moved toward me. "Sit down," Mr. Vance barked. "The camera is still recording. Every threat you make is being filmed." My father fell back into his chair like his legs had turned to sand. For the first time he understood the trap. He couldn't be rich for the building and poor for the government at the same time. Mr. Vance fixed his sleeve and looked at him. "Sir," the lawyer said quietly, "I have a legal duty to report this. I cannot hide evidence of a crime. Before you even leave this office, I am going to send this video and the paper to the United States bankruptcy trustee." My mother's voice was a tiny whisper. "You can't, we are family." "I am not your family," Mr. Vance replied. "I am a lawyer who wants to keep his job, and I should tell you because you admitted to hiding a lot of money while getting rid of your debt. The court will likely freeze all your assets by tomorrow morning." He leaned in closer. "That means every bank account with your name on it gets locked. Your pensions will be taken and your vehicles will be seized. You will be left with nothing so they can pay back the people you cheated. My sister hit the table hard. Stop, she screamed. She was shaking and her face was red. I don't care about bankruptcy. I am not leaving that apartment. I have rights. I live there. Mr. Vance turned to her with no emotion on his face. Actually, you don't. You got inside that apartment by lying to the staff and using a fake excuse. In the state of Massachusetts, that means you have no right to stay there. You aren't a resident. You are a trespasser. He looked at his watch. The police are already on their way to the apartment to remove people who shouldn't be there. If you are there when they arrive, you will be arrested for trespassing. My sister made a sound that was half crying and half screaming. My mother covered her face with her hands. My father just stared at the table. Then all three of them looked at me with pure hatred and shock. They looked at me like I had destroyed their lives for fun, and in a way I had. People always tell you to be the bigger person. They say you should just evict them or change the locks. But you can't talk to a cancer. If I had just kicked them out, they would have sued me for years. They would have followed me and drained my money with legal fees and guilt until I had nothing left. To save my own life, I had to end theirs. I stood up. My legs felt heavy, but I stood straight. You think this is mean? I asked while my sister cried. You think I am evil? You are, my mother spat at me through her tears. You are sending your own parents to jail. You are putting your sister on the street. No, I said, I am cutting you off. You are parasites, and parasites do not stop until the person they are feeding on is dead. If I leave you even $1 or one bit of power over me, you will use it to ruin me. I looked my father in the eyes. He was the man who taught me that love was just a business deal. This isn't about revenge, I said softly. It's surgery. It is fast and you can't fix it. I had to burn the bridge while you were still on it, so you could never come after me again. I picked up my bag. The police will be at the apartment in 20 minutes. I suggest you go get your things. 2 police officers came into the room 10 minutes later. They weren't there to arrest my parents yet, but they were there to make sure they left the office. Watching them be walked out of the glass room felt strange. A whole life of them controlling me was ending under bright lights. My mother's fur coat looked heavy and ugly now. My sister wasn't looking at her phone anymore. She was just staring at the floor, realizing she wouldn't be sleeping in a luxury apartment tonight. At the doors, my father pulled away from the officers just long enough to look at me. He had tears on his face and he looked very old. Please, he begged. We are your parents, don't let them take everything. We did this for the family. I looked back at him. You're right, you did do this for the family. You chose which part of the family you wanted to protect. My voice was quiet, and it wasn't me. We can fix it, he pleaded. Tell the lawyer to stop, we will leave, we will go away. It's too late, I said. The files are already sent. I stepped closer to him. You sold me out for a house, I told him. I sold you out for my freedom, the deal is done. The elevator doors closed while he was still crying. I didn't go back to the apartment. I paid my lawyer, left the building and went straight to the airport. Everything fell apart for them very fast. The court moved even quicker than I thought. Within 2 days all their money was frozen. Their accounts were gone, their truck was taken, and their pensions were seized. The debt they thought was gone came back with huge fines. They were charged with bankruptcy, fraud, and lying under oath. They both ended up getting a 4-year sentence in federal prison. My sister was kicked out of the apartment that same night. Since she had no lease and had lied to get in, she was just a trespasser. She stayed in a shelter for months before she found a relative to stay with. As for the apartment, I sold it. I couldn't even breathe inside those walls anymore. After all the fees were paid, I had $320,000 left. I bought a ticket and left the country. Now I am sitting in a small cafe in Chelsea in London. I have a new phone number, no social media, and a peaceful life. To them I am just a ghost, but I am a ghost who won. If you think cutting off toxic family is the only way to survive, hit subscribe and tell me, would you have done the same thing or would you have stopped?